The most dangerous people in the world are not the strongest. They are not the smartest. And they are definitely not the most talented. The most dangerous people are the ones who have learned how to turn their weaknesses into weapons. Because when life takes away your advantages, it forces you to develop something far more powerful. Adaptability. History is filled with people who looked weak on the surface, but became unstoppable because of the very limitations that should have destroyed them. A teenager trapped inside a paralyzed body. A struggling startup with no chance of competing against a billion-dollar giant. A boy missing an arm who defeated stronger opponents. At first glance, these stories seem impossible. But they all reveal the same hidden psychological principle. Your greatest weakness can become your greatest advantage. And by the end of this video, you will understand why the flaw you spend so much time trying to hide may actually be the source of your future success. From childhood, we are taught to fix ourselves. Be smarter. Be stronger. Be more confident. Be more talented. We spend years trying to eliminate our weaknesses because we believe success belongs to those who have the fewest flaws. But history tells a very different story. Again and again, the people who leave the biggest mark on the world are not the people with perfect advantages. They are the people who learn how to use their disadvantages differently. Instead of fighting their weaknesses, they build around them. Instead of hiding their limitations, they transform them into strengths. And one of the most powerful examples of this principle comes from a young man named Milton Erickson. In 1919, 17-year-old Milton Erickson contracted polio. The disease was so severe that doctors believed he would not survive. One night, lying motionless in bed, he overheard a doctor quietly tell his mother that her son probably would not make it until morning. Imagine hearing those words. Imagine wanting to respond. Wanting to tell everyone that you are still alive, that you are still there, but being unable to move. Unable to speak, unable to do anything except listen. For most people, this would have been the end. For Erickson, it became the beginning. Because his body could not move, his attention moved elsewhere. He began studying people. He watched every conversation, every expression, every gesture, every subtle shift in emotion. He noticed something fascinating. People often said one thing while feeling another. Their words told one story, their body language told another. And because he had nothing else to do for months, he became exceptionally skilled at noticing these hidden signals. What began as a devastating weakness slowly became an extraordinary advantage. Years later, Erickson became one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century and helped pioneer modern hypnotherapy. The ability that made him famous was born during the period when he was weakest, not despite it, because of it. And this reveals something remarkable about human nature. The human brain is designed to adapt. Whenever life creates a limitation, the brain begins searching for another path. Comfort rarely forces growth. Difficulty does. When resources disappear, creativity appears. When options become limited, focus becomes sharper. When obstacles emerge, innovation follows. Psychologists often refer to this idea as a form of adaptive growth. The challenge itself becomes the training ground. And some of the most successful people in history are living proof of this principle. Research has shown unusually high rates of learning differences among entrepreneurs, not because these challenges automatically create success, but because people facing obstacles are often forced to develop alternative skills. When traditional methods fail, creativity becomes necessary. When doing everything alone becomes impossible, leadership becomes essential. The weakness forces the development of strengths that other people never bother building, and that is where the advantage begins. There is a famous motivational story about a young boy who lost his left arm in an accident. Determined not to let his condition define him, he decided to study judo. A master agreed to train him. But there was something strange about the training. For months, the master taught him only one move. Again, and again, and again. The boy grew frustrated. Other students were learning dozens of techniques. He knew only one. Eventually, he asked his teacher why. The master simply told him to trust the process. Months later, the boy entered his first tournament. To everyone's surprise, he kept winning, one match after another. Soon he found himself in the championship round against a much larger and more experienced opponent. The crowd expected the fight to end quickly. But when the opportunity appeared, the boy executed his single perfected technique. The champion hit the mat. The boy had won. Afterward, he finally received an explanation. The move he had mastered was one of the most difficult throws in judo, and the standard defense against it required grabbing the attacker's left arm. The arm the boy did not have. His greatest weakness had become his greatest advantage. The thing that seemed unfair had become the reason he could not be stopped. And that lesson extends far beyond martial arts. In the late 1990s, Blockbuster dominated movie rentals. Thousands of stores, millions of customers, massive resources. Then a tiny company called Netflix appeared. Compared to Blockbuster, Netflix looked weak. They had no stores, no nationwide presence, no giant budget. On paper, they should have lost. But their weakness forced them to think differently. Since they could not compete store for store, they had to innovate. They experimented with mail delivery. Then they embraced online streaming. Meanwhile, Blockbuster became trapped by its own strengths. Its stores generated enormous revenue, making change difficult. The giant could not adapt. The underdog had no choice. And eventually, the underdog won. What appeared to be Netflix's weakness became its greatest strategic advantage. History rewards adaptation more than power. The moment your life changes is the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Victims focus on what has been taken away. Winners focus on what can still be built. The obstacle and the opportunity are often the same thing viewed from different angles. Milton Erickson saw opportunity in paralysis. Netflix found opportunity in limitation. The young judo student found opportunity in what he had lost. They all understood a truth that most people miss. Weaknesses are not always walls. Sometimes they are doors. Doors that force you down a path no one else is willing to take. Most people spend their lives trying to become perfect. But perfection is overrated. Perfect people are predictable. Perfect people follow familiar paths. The people who change the world are often the ones who learn how to turn limitations into leverage. So the next time you feel frustrated by a flaw, remember this: your weakness is not automatically your downfall. It is raw material. It is pressure. It is resistance. And resistance is what creates strength. The strongest weapon you will ever possess may not be your greatest strength. It may be the weakness you have been trying to escape all along. If you enjoyed this video and want to understand the hidden psychological principles behind success, human behavior, and history's greatest lessons, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes the secret to becoming stronger is not removing your weakness. It's learning how to use it.